Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to Franchise CXO Dialogue. The series involves learning from thought leaders at leading franchise organizations. Hope you all are keeping safe and healthy. My name is Ashita Marra, and I'm the CEO of Franchise India. I'm very excited today to welcome Mr. Anil Nagar, who's the CEO and founder of Adda 24/7. Anil is an alumni of IIT BHU and has worked in the topmost echelons of various big ticket organizations and has held several important designations. In a bid to serve society, with his passion for philanthropy, he then decided to devote his time and energy to educate the young minds of the country by providing them quality education. He also possesses an in-depth understanding of the various pedagogy-related challenges faced by aspirants in the present era. And therefore, he's wholly committed to empowering the youth by offering them the latest affordable edutech solutions. Adda 24/7 has developed and has run a highly scalable technology-driven platform with overall funding to the tune of about 10 million. And Adda 24/7 has also created a team of 400 plus professionals and a broad network of 100 plus teachers with about 5 million YouTube subscribers and 10 million plus app downloads, and it has around 75 franchisees pan India. It aims to provide quality education at affordable cost to the last mile student. And it has witnessed 5x revenue growth in its vernacular business in past 6 months during the COVID-19 lockdown. It has also entered into IIT, JEE, and NEET examinations. It collaborates with Indec AI to create learning content for the visually impaired students also. We also have with us Mr. Gaurav Maurya, who's the chairman of Franchise India, who's being one of those who worked with possibly every franchisor across the nation. And he's highly regarded for his contribution in popularizing franchising in India. So a very warm welcome to you, Anil, on the platform. I'm very excited to have you here. But I'll start from this so-called expected question as to how has COVID-19 has changed the consumer expectations from Adda 24/7, and what are the unique challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much, Ashta. I think it's one of the unique platform for me and a lot of franchisors who want to enter into franchising. And coming to your question, I think this last 6 months have been very challenging on one side, and on the other side, these are the times when we have innovated the most. If I talk of last 4 years since we started Adda 24/7 as an online entity, we have innovated a lot in last 6 months. I will say we were already innovating, we were working on a lot of things, but then COVID forced us to go deeper into it and to probably do things faster. I think the whole point here is that these are the times which are changing very fast. COVID is one of the things, but otherwise also things change very, very fast and you have to adapt to those changes. You have to be nimble as an organization. You have to be very agile because new technologies are coming up, new opportunities are coming up in terms of scaling, in terms of reaching out to bigger audience, in terms of making it big. If we talk of education, I think revolution in education has just started with respect to tech. 6 months back, or let's say I will say 1 year back, most of the people will prefer offline as a premier mode of or the primary mode of learning or preparation. But now that trend is changing very fast, and that is also making a lot of people uncomfortable who are already settled in their offline and doing things traditionally for quite long. So I think this is the time to change. This is the time to wake up, and this is the time to adapt to new things and new challenges. Coming times is definitely going to belong to technology only, right? You have to somehow you have to engage and you have to include technology in your offering and utilize technology to create more value to your audience. So yes, these times have been challenging, particularly for education. The best part is that a lot of it can be done through online. Although what I believe is that education cannot be completely offline probably, and there will always be element of personal touch and offline element. But I think new models which are evolving and uh, the current needs which are coming up in the new era, those will define the future of education. And accordingly, entrepreneurs are going to innovate on those. Like we are also innovating a lot on that. That ultimately how we are going to serve our audience, how we are going to create value, or if times have changed, in these times, current times, are we able to match up to those previous expectations, or can we do better on that? So I think we are working on that vision. Clearly, our focus is that we should be able to deliver more value to our audience and uh, effectively help them and support them in their endeavor, whatever they are trying to achieve and whatever they are trying to prepare.
Sure, I think absolutely very, very wisely said. I mean, this is a time where, and now I'll talk about more on the franchise side of business, because franchise companies conventionally don't change. I mean, they have been practicing, like if you see example of McDonald's, you know, how McDonald's used to behave in so to say in 90s, was behaving very similar to in the last decade and this decade also, very clearly big box, format and things like that. So I feel that it will be even more challenging when you run a franchise network and bring innovation, because you can at a company level, they'll still do that. But how do you really get your franchisee also to start thinking the same way, that the innovation would be part of their life cycle? Otherwise, they don't like it because they buy into one format and then they don't like that why you're changing this format to something else. So is that happening at your end also? What do you see what is your remarks on that? I mean, how does franchise organizations have to be really, adapt as nimbleness and innovation? And also the difficult part is how do you really implement in a franchise network that innovation? Because sometimes companies want to change. Today there are a lot of companies want to change their products. They want to change the way that it is delivered. But how do you really bring the change to the franchise network?
Right. So first of all, Gaurav, everybody, I think almost everybody resists change. Nobody want to change. If something is working for them, they like it and they improve. They want to improvise on that in most of the cases. But I think in today's era, innovation is the key and adoption to new challenges is the key. I will give you an example in our case. So we run a brand, Career Power, and we have physical centers of Career Power all across India. So we have almost, as of now, we'll have more than 50 branches all across India. And those centers were typically offline centers where they are basically in major education hubs where students will come and they will take physical coaching of, let's say, 5-6 months for various government jobs. We were already into that process of innovation, that how we are going to help them in terms of technology, because Adda 24/7, which is again one of the core offering from our company. So we had always this thing in mind that eventually technology is going to play a major role, and we have to support our whole network through technology, and that should give them advantage over the competition also. But when the COVID came suddenly, so frankly, we were not prepared at all. We were doing things at our own pace, although we had that vision in mind that, okay, eventually a lot of it is about going to be technology, and they have to use technology either to engage users or to bring in new users, or let's say servicing the current users. But suddenly when this COVID came up, then we suddenly went into that mode, that how we can now expedite our things and how we can support them on an immediate basis. And we took a lot of decisions on that. I will say a lot of decisions which we could have not taken, rather, wherein we said that maybe in these times people are not able to come to your physical centers. So how we as a technology company can support you so that you can teach them online, or maybe if there is going to be, let's say, 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months time when you can open your centers. So in the meantime, how you are going to support your current students, because at that time COVID came, nobody knew COVID is coming, and students were there on these branches and they were studying there. So one of the key thought was that, okay, let's forget about new customers at the time being. Let's talk about current customers. Uh, are they being served, or can we serve them in these tough times? So then we came up with kind of hybrid kind of solutions, where we said that, okay, if you are not able to open your centers, probably we can we can use technology to serve these guys in online mode, so that while they are at home, we are able to serve them. And we brought on all our franchisees on our platform as online partners to us, specifically for this duration. We already had an ecosystem where we were serving B2C, people who were buying our online products on a 24/7 platform. But then suddenly we brought up all these franchises on our platform, where they were able to serve their current students through our platform. And it was kind of similar experience. For example, some ex-teacher was teaching some particular set of students in any branch. So post-COVID, same teacher was teaching those students, but through online mode. So I think this matters a lot. Ultimately, customer satisfaction is the key. If people find that you are serious about them and you think of them and you empathize with them, I think they will stay with you, and eventually a lot of positive word of mouth is going to be in the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think while it is tough for everybody, but the companies which are working hard to innovate and adapt, and companies which are ready to understand and listen only one voice, which is your customer voice, would survive. Because if you start listening in these times multiple voices, you can be, and it should always be driven. And I say singular focus is only driven from hearing what your customer, what do you want. And if you're only, because at this stage you cannot justify many. There are a lot of internal and external demands which you continue to see, right? But if you only keep a singular focus and say, let me address one agenda at this time, and which is your customer, I think everything would sail in. And this is what the problem with a lot of other companies have been historically. They sometimes try to justify the capex being deployed. A lot of innovations don't come out because people think that if the innovation would write off the earlier capex they have invested. So
Right.
innovation actually takes off the earlier capex. I give this example where LED was invented by Philips in 90s. They never wanted to mass the LED because they felt that if they would do that, all the older technologies and the capex deployed on that would get out of the window. And they restricted it. Rather, the innovator himself was restricting not to bring that technology out in the mass, because they felt that the entire capex, like what is happening on the e-vehicle, almost everybody has a technology, but everybody is holding that technology. They're slowly moving that technology because they feel that if they do it, they will disrupt their older capex. So innovation in that sense is a self-risk. But somebody who really understands, and the timing wise, you will be able to do that. And now everything is, companies are understanding that there is a time where they need to.
Yeah, I will give you an example in our case only. So we started in 2010, and we started a purely physical offline ecosystem, and we started from Noida. And then we started growing very fast. The only reason was we were very, very focused on our students. In fact, we and my other co-founder, we used to teach, and we used to do almost everything like any other entrepreneur. And we grew very, very fast. In 2016, we had almost 80 branches all across India. 2016, we decided that our intent is to serve masses at tier 2, tier 3. That was the vision we started, because we came from that background and we felt that there is a severe problem. People are not able to access quality education. So 2016, we realized that internet had come, and Jio was there, and people were having mobile devices, and we thought that we should go online. And at that time, one of the biggest thought in our mind was that if we start online and start serving people through online mode, two things are going to happen. One, because in online, it's a huge scale, and because of economy of scale, we can serve students at a quite low price also. And then this thought came up with our branch managers, and they started saying that if we start giving our product in online mode as a much cheaper price, then why somebody will come to our offline ecosystem? So for example, at that time, our offline fee was around, let's say, 10,000. and we will offer this online course, let's say in 1,000 or 2,000 rupees. And it was a big mental block for all of us that, okay, if we do that, are we going to kill our own business, which we have built over the last 6 years? We worked day and night to build it. So that was the thought. But other thought was that if we don't do it, are we going to be killed by competition? Technology is coming up, new competition, new players are coming up, young entrepreneurs are innovating there. And if you don't do that, then somebody is going to innovate and then probably will die otherwise. That was a thought, and very clear thought in my mind, that if we don't adopt, if we don't change, although we had a very robust, profitable model, we did not raise any money in 6 years, totally self-funded, huge ecosystem, big brand. But then still we innovated, and we innovated at the cost of our current business model, where we said that there might be some compromise. Although I was sure that there's not going to be compromise, it's a huge market, and ultimately the offering is going to be hybrid, and both are going to survive and both are going to thrive in future. But if we don't innovate, then it's not the way forward, because then somebody else will innovate. And for customer, it doesn't matter. They are looking for service, and if you can give the service better quality at a cheaper cost, then why not? They will go to the competitor.
You're right. Back on this should be learned from Japanese. They started in the auto business, very clear strategy that when the model is at the peak performance, at the highest market share, they withdraw the model and put a new one, because they know that if this gets into a decline curve, then it is very difficult to bring the same level of impact. So it's best to withdraw when you are at the peak and create a new thing and offer a new thing, and then that thing. That cycle is much easier to do than actually having something go up and fully decline and then you bring back a new product and things like that. Doesn't work. And this changed the industry. When you see a model of Toyota, which is at the peak of sales, they actually change and bring a new model on that. So, and it just questions that, people are liking it, people are buying, the maximum sales is happening, because I understand the day it starts declining, it will be very difficult. So it's a good thought. Over to you, Ashita, for your question.
Well, that's interesting, and I think a dilemma for entrepreneurs as well, and large organizations, as to when to innovate and when to implement. So I think there has to be a right mix for both. Great. So talking about innovation, and then there's another thing which is very important, to the company, is largely the culture that you follow. Because when you have partners, when you grow from 0 to 10, you've got a lot of consumers who consume you, not just in an online space, in an offline space also. So, I read Simon Sinek's latest book, and he says a very good thing, that he says that one of, that the company culture is a concept, that is easier to experience than to describe or to talk about. So, just wanted to understand as to what, Adda 24/7 represent and stand for. And what is it that you would like your partners to, be experienced by the consumers? Again, I'm saying whether in an online space or an offline space.
Right. So you are right, Ashita, absolutely right. Culture, at least what I have experienced in the last 10 years, is that culture is at the top of, I will say, culture matters the most. And for any entrepreneur and for any CEO, culture comes at the top of mind in terms of priorities to be fixed for the company. And for any fast-growing company, any company which has a clear vision and which want to make it big, culture is going to play a big role. And again, culture flows from the top. It cannot be theoretical. You cannot make policies. You cannot make rules. You cannot define a culture on paper that this is our culture and somebody can read it and understand it. This is not going to happen. Culture is not that. Culture, as you rightly said, culture is something which you can feel in the organization. People unknowingly do things. They even don't know why they are doing certain things, why they are behaving in a certain way. But that's the culture of the company. Particularly in our case, we are very conscious about it. So two things matter for us a lot. First thing is customer. We always think of customer, and we want to think that whatever we are doing, is it helping customer? is it solving some of their problem? If we are trying to do something which is already solved and which is not a problem, right, then probably it's not going to work in a longer duration, right? So you have to think, whatever you are doing, are you actually solving a problem? Or you are just doing your business, you want to do business, you have some idea, okay, I don't want to do job and I want to do business. Again, that's not going to work. So whatever you are doing, you have to add value to your customer, and they should feel about it that, okay, they have helped you. And someday if you are not there, they should feel your absence, okay, that this was there, I was able to do these things better. So obviously, first is the customer top of mind, that whatever you are doing, you have to keep customer in mind, and keep not from the perspective that you are going to take money from the customer. Money follows. I think money is the outcome of our efforts which we put to solve customer problems. But at the top of mind, customer problems have to be there. Second approach is we want to be very honest with our customers. We may not be perfect as a company. We are a growing company, and we face a lot of challenges in terms of manpower, in terms of funding, in terms of so many things, right? We are learning in the process. But when we talk to our customer, we want to say that okay, we are with you. We are trying to help you our best, and we are concerned about your problems, and whatever we have promised to you or whatever we want to solve for you, we are completely honest with you. And we have to communicate that very well, because your services, at least in the initial stages of your business, can never be perfect. They will never be perfect. But if you are able to communicate this very clearly to your audience, that okay, this is what we are doing and this is the efforts we are putting, and you can show your sincerity and honesty, then the connect is built. And when these people start realizing that okay, things may not be perfect, but you are putting up your best effort, and eventually when you have that sincerity in your DNA, in your company philosophy, then eventually things also improve, because you are doing things from your heart, and you really feel for it, that okay, we exist because of the customer, and these are the problems which we have clearly decided to solve, and the whole company is trying to solve those problems, and eventually things get solved, and you then step by step you keep on moving up the ladder. So yes, I believe honesty is very important. For again, this is again respect of customer. Internally, what we feel is that one of the key thing for us is two things rather. One is teamwork, which we really believe in, that ultimately there are no superstars. Team is everything, right? Team is going to deliver bigger things. And secondly, the ownership part, that it's going to be a function of ownership, and rather extreme ownership. Whatever task you take up, whatever project you take up, you own it completely. Completely means you have to think of all the dimensions which might be there to that project or the task, but there can be no excuses, right? So yeah, internally we follow these two things very, I will say, these are embedded into our DNA, and we follow them very rigorously, that whatever we do with complete ownership and complete honesty with the customer. And team is something which matters the most for us. Don't believe in superstars per se.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. So that's pretty much nullifies the whole thing, how it travels right from the top to the bottom, and how it is being followed up by the partners. Very truly said. So next, going back to the third pillar of any organization would be the strategy that you've chosen to kind of reach where you are today, and where you think you're going to be there from this point to another point, which is the vision today to kind of reach in next probably 1 year or 2 years. So how do you that's where they say that you cannot be everything to everybody, no matter what the size of your business is, or no matter how deep your pockets are. So what choices or what strategies has helped you reach where you are today, and will they be the same to follow for at least a couple of years to come? Because you would probably focus on few things that you would want to be expert on, because as I say, that strategy cannot be that you want to be good in everything, or you want to kind of take every segment that exists in the target today. So how is it that you're looking forward to take care of that?
So I'll tell you currently how we think about it is that so we are into education, and education is something which is very vast, from K-12 to graduation, post-graduation, government jobs. It's huge, right? Whole gamut of education is really big in India. So of course, as you said that at one point of time you have to take up one thing, right, and you have to be expert on that. At one point of time you cannot have 100 things at your plate on your plate, right? So our strategy has been, so till now we have been very focused on government test prep, right? We have always thought that there is a youth which is unemployed in India, and we are thinking of them. We want to help them, and we want to help them get jobs, and that's the service we are doing to them and society and to ourselves, because that gives us a lot of satisfaction that we were able to help someone to move ahead in life, uh, and uh, uh, and that matters the most. I think in today's era our audience is tier 2, tier 3, and when we are able to help those guys get jobs, then uh, for them it matters a lot. That may be the most important thing or most important time of their life when they get these jobs. On the other hand, as a company, when we think of a strategy, that what's the future ahead? Are we going to do the same thing in next 5-10 years, or we have something else in mind? So I'll say one of the things which we always think about is that what else our current student or current audience is looking for in terms of education. So maybe they are preparing for government job, but they might have some other educational needs also. Maybe they are in graduation, or maybe they are in post graduation. Maybe they are looking for some certification courses. Maybe they are looking for some skill based courses. So we always think that we have this huge audience. In fact, I will tell you, we have almost 4 crore audience, 4 crore people on our platform. That's last year's numbers. And it's a huge number. 4 crore people visiting your platform in a year. It's big. So for us, the thought is that how we are going to help these guys uh, in context of education, and other than what we are currently helping or what currently doing with them. So our first strategy is that beyond government test prep, we would like to help and support them in their other initiatives related to education. That may be graduation, that may be certification, that may be anything related to that. And on the second level, we want to be, or other I will say on a broader level, we want to be kind of mentor to them, because they might eventually uh, uh, try one thing but may not succeed there. So how we can be with them, how we can guide them, that if one thing has not worked, then probably they can afford the other thing, and how they can move ahead in their life. We want to be there. So broadly speaking, what we are doing right now is a specific service where we help them in getting jobs, or getting uh, help them in clearing various exams. But on a broader level, we want to say that we are with you, and and of course, this is the youth of the country, and we want to support them to succeed in their life. And mostly because our expertise is around education, and we think around education only. But in education also, there are a lot of things which we can do, and our roadmap is around those only. In like 4 to 5 years, we think that we should be able to help this audience in their every educational needs or any career related needs in coming times.
So you've recently, as I see that you've recently started IIT, NEET, JEE, and some options for visually impaired students as well. So you're doing it in-house, as in you're developing the technology, or how is it that you look forward to do that? Because I think that's something that nobody else is doing so far.
So Indic AI is an independent organization, and they help and they create content for visually impaired students. Uh, they are primarily technology platform, and they are looking for content, and because there's a huge number of audience who belong to this category, and they are not supported in current ecosystem. And uh, incidentally, we met those guys through a friend, and then we were discussing that how we can add value to their offering, and probably because again, see, the point is that you're doing business, but you also to all this to your society also, and primarily in education, it is a lot more about society, that how you can contribute more, because eventually that also helps your business if you are purely thinking in terms of business also. But leaving business apart, you have to think of society, and you have to add value whatever you can. So when we had this conversation, we realized that they have the technology, they are working on a specific segment, a specific kind of students, and kind of they had the reach to those guys. And then we came up with this thought that let's collaborate. And we came up with this partnership wherein we are not earning anything, right? That was not expectation from day one also. It was pure social initiative for us, where we said that we are willing to collaborate on that. We'll provide all kind of content to support those guys. And we don't want any money. We don't expect any money out of it. But we will be very happy if we are able to add value and if we are able to support those guys. And I will tell you, one of the student came up, and we had the interview of the student also on our YouTube channel. We came live and we did a interview also, where one of the visually impaired student from Rajasthan, he was living in a village in Rajasthan, and with these kind of courses where we were able to support them in terms of technology, in terms of course, he was able to clear one of the bank exam, and he became bank clerk in certain bank, right? And that was a big achievement for all of us, and we really celebrated that probably he could not have done it if not supported properly. He had the zeal, he has the fire in him to do something big, or to get out of that poverty and that kind of background. And when he succeeded in the exam, and we met him, and he very openly and very generously told us that this is all because of support which we were able to provide him. Under 24/7 played a key role in his success. Although we believe that might be just a fraction of it, let's say 90% was his effort only. But even if we were able to add 1%, I think this is big achievement. And if we are, as a company, we are able to help these weaker sections of the society in any way, then we really feel good about ourselves, and we feel proud of what we are doing.
Absolutely, and I think so. That's the way this would bring the change. And if you really start empowering, and that's where I think, I mean, besides, I feel that even the government of India should really look at organizations like you, which can genuinely do empowerment, because fundamental to our society is that, and even in the COVID times, I've been saying that only two ways you can help the society: one, build micro entrepreneurship, and second is education. Outside this, I mean, helping this economy is impossible. There is no third idea. You cannot feed people free food and things like that. Either give them education, they can be employable, and or create micro entrepreneurship, that they get some work to go and to do that. And between these two, I think pretty much your organization is trying to do both. In one side you are creating entrepreneurs who partner with you, and second side you are creating a education for people to be employed. And with the society as large as India, there is no third idea. And I feel that the agenda for any government, for any place, any state government or institution, should really revolve around these two things. Because outside anything else has no meaning to me. Because when you have a 95% of the country really falling into these two pieces, anything you address for the 5% of that society, it doesn't make any sense. But if you genuinely want to do that, and we don't have policies which have been well followed, where healthcare, education for all, and things of that nature, we cannot say. But I feel that your organization is doing a really great job in terms of getting them empowered, especially people who need a little support. Well, you're right. Most of the work come from the candidate himself. He needs to put his energy, his hard work, his will. But if he gets a direction, get a little bit of tools, I think it's journey becomes much more easier to do that.
True that. Because, if you give back to the society, it comes back to you, and particularly in education, because you're actually not helping them literally, but you're helping them, get into a position wherein they can self-sustain, and grow later. So I think that's the best help or support you can do to anybody. So yeah, kudos to that. I think that was, one pointer that got my eye, and I really wanted to hear it from you as to how is that happening. So that's interesting. So that tells me that you're talking more about products, and you're increasing and innovating products when it comes to the education as well. So how are you maintaining the processes which are involved in it? Right from when you're delivering it to the consumers directly, as well as with your partners. So how are you maintaining that efficiency from those partners, that it's being delivered at the same level that you would to a consumer?
And also, I would like to add on, and I would like to pick your mind, because it's something which a lot of work is going on in this hybrid model, edutech, and a lot of other things. And I'm seeing companies which are aggregators, which are aggregating everything. They're pure play tech-based businesses which are acting as a platform, and they're very serious content companies. Out of these three, where do you really see? While it looks like that a lot of people are actually in all of three, but what, as an organization, Adda 24/7 would like to be known for? Would you like to be leading from content and delivery? Would you be technology and structure? So what is the 4 or 5 years for you look like?
So we don't generally we don't think on these lines. We always think in terms of value. Frankly, for me, it doesn't matter whether it is offline, it is online. But for me, what matters is whether we are actually solving anything for our customers. Are they getting value out of it? And if we don't exist, is it going to matter to our audience or not? Otherwise, if you're doing the same thing which 10 other guys are doing or 100 other guys are doing, then you are irrelevant, right? You are just one of them, and you cannot think of having a long term, or let's say kind of 10-year. Probably you cannot see 10 years or 20 years in that case. So we, as a philosophy, we think of customer, and we also think of changing times, right? For example, pre-COVID we had certain value prop for our audience, but post-COVID we have totally different kind of value add, right? We might be thinking and that is quite genuine also. It is not that. So there are two things. One is, a lot of times external ecosystem changes where the need also changes and you have to adapt to them. Other part is that same need is there, but because of technology and because of process systems, you can probably now serve it better in a more efficient way, and more productive way, and more profitable way. So we want to be known for quality, definitely. We want to be known for our honesty and sincerity, that this is the brand which is not just business, but which is kind of our mentors, which are our guides, which are honest. And we have been very, very honest. Frankly, I will tell you, we have been very honest with our audience, our customers, to that extent that I have even talked to our students, even as on today, like on a monthly basis, I will call up few students and I will talk, how is it going? Are you feeling good about it? What are the pain areas? What we are not able to solve? So I think this matters a lot on an overall level. Content may be one of the thing which, or one of the need which is there, and students need content, but many other companies can also create content, right? It's not something where you will have some kind of differentiator in the long term. The only differentiator in the long term is that, as a brand, are you serious about your students? Are you with them? Do you think of them? Are you solving the problems? So I think that matters a lot. Process systems matter when it comes to standardization, and you have, let's say, a lot of partners, and you want to say that you want to standardize your services. Their technology plays a key role, and where we feel that we are really good, because we are able to measure outcomes at every level. We have clear funnels. We can see On everyday basis, we get the report, what is the satisfaction level, whenever somebody is using our service, are they happy about it or not? Uh, and that report is again circulated to partners and stakeholders. So keeping control over all the aspects and keep measuring where you are and are you moving up or you are static, static or you are going down. I think this should be I think generally part of any organization's process systems, that you know where you are and whether you are improving on those key parameters or not. So use technology to that extent. But broadly, we believe that with times, these parameters also change and a lot of needs also change. And you have to innovate on that constantly. And you have to think from problem solving perspective, that think what problem student is facing. Don't try to solve the problem which is already solved and which is not a problem. Don't put in your money and efforts there. Put your money and effort where there is a need.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you bang on in terms of, and I can see clear focus for you. And because I think because we are Franchise India and this show is around franchising, so it will be wrong if I don't take a few questions with you in terms of what is your franchise strategy, how does model evolve in terms of doing it, what do you do for your franchisee empowerment, training, and capability. Maybe talk about a little profile of the franchisee which you have, and what kind of franchisee you would like to see, and maybe some bit of your expansion plan also.
Right. So in terms of franchisee, earlier, so we have a brand career power where we said that, which we started in the beginning and which is the core of the company also, where we said that education is a lot personal thing and people want to connect and talk to the teacher and they want to, it's a traditional ecosystem, which got eventually disrupted because of Corona, which was already being disrupted for quite some time because we moved online also and then we were running both. What I feel now is, and this is how we have also adopted to the new ecosystem, is that ultimately it has to be a hybrid ecosystem where you serve some of the needs which are related to your offline thing, where somebody can come and walk in, they can talk, they can maybe clear doubts, or that personal touch element can be created there. But then a lot of things can be done online also and should be done online, because you save a lot of cost on a student side. You give him flexibility. For example, if you want to give a you want to give a facility to your students that now they can solve their doubts 24/7. They need not come to physical branch, and they can do it online also from their home. So that adds a lot of value to offline offering, right? You in offline you have good teacher, you are teaching, you are maintaining relationship, right? But you gave him additional facility that now using online technology and online platform, he can now solve doubts 24/7. So now what I believe is that it's going to be hybrid. And in our case, what we are doing is that we are trying to create a model ecosystem which is uh, first from a student perspective, which is highly value added as compared to pure offline or pure online. Secondly, we also want to create an ecosystem which is profitable for our partners from day one, right? We think that there are times when uh, uh, people have, in terms of capital, people have a lot of constraints. And if somebody is starting a franchisee, then probably it we have to ensure that it's a profitable proposition for them. And how we make it happen in terms of profitability, and having more controls over it in terms of profitability, and leaving lesser things to our partners in terms of uh, bigger scheme of things. So this is what again we think in terms of when it comes to franchisee. So we always try to innovate that how we can reduce cost on the franchise side, how we can bring in automation through our technology so that they do less and they are more productive. And secondly, we also think that is the ecosystem such that they will be profitable, maybe from profitable from day one, or maybe profitable as early as possible. How what kind of offering they can be, and uh, uh, again that flows from student also, because at the top of it is student only, and everything starts from there. So there are two things from a student perspective. Try to figure out whether what kind of offering should be there, and then at the same time on the franchise side, we try to figure out that we have to reduce the process systems which need to be followed at the franchise side, how we can minimize those things so that there's less possibility of error. Ultimately, the bigger concern for us remains is that if somebody is going to our branch and they are visiting our branch, how we ensure that these guys have a good experience or seamless experience, and how we can control that to a large extent. Which other side of that is that how we minimize complexities for our franchise partners so that they remain focused on their core, whatever they could do better. And we as a technology company and we as a more experienced partner into the whole ecosystem, how we can guide them better to do those things. So we try to utilize technology to that extent. And in terms of trainings and in terms of even guidance, we provide them all kind of training because uh, now it's almost 10 years and we have run offline, large offline ecosystem, large online ecosystem, hybrid. So we have a lot of experience, much deeper experience into it. And I think that kind of experience is required whenever somebody is looking for any franchisee. They should try to look for that kind of experience, that somebody who has been in the ecosystem for so long. And I think technology plays a role that whoever in the long run, technology is going to be big enabler and big, I'll say, advantage to any company.
Absolutely. And I also feel that there should be an opportunity for you to do a lot of conversion franchise, because a lot of people who are running infrastructure, but they lack both in terms of the content, training, and capability, and now with technology, I think the whole test prep, coaching, the whole space is going to transform, and very few people would be able to adapt, and people who would be able to adapt would get an opportunity to consolidate, because this is a very fragmented industry. And today, while it's a $6 billion industry, but it's very, very fragmented and very different structure. So it can be an opportunity for you to really scale up by a lot of conversion. So that also would be a good
Right.
opportunity. Ashita, over to you in last few questions, and because we're running out of time.
Yes. So how do you, having said that, all of these things that you would do for franchisees and, you'll be able to do, how do you maintain the relationship? I mean, since you've been, having partners offline earlier and now online. So how have you been able to maintain that balance? Sometimes there's a pull push going around, things go west, but how do you manage that?
Yes, I think these kind of situations come, and I think these situations come between any partners at every level, right? Any two partners will have some to and fro and some differences time to time. But I think if objectives are aligned and both of us are working on the same mission, then things get sorted very fast. When we come into any conflict or any kind of debate with our partners, so we have a clear philosophy that let's not think from our perspective, let's think from a student perspective. Both of us exist because of our student, and we have to do what matters to our student, right? The call should be in favor of student and not against student. So as a philosophy, most of the time this is what we do, and otherwise I think this is a relationship which matures over time. Like initially you don't know each other, you will know very less about each other, you might have heard about yourself, but over the time when you deal with each other, then you get to know and start knowing each other's personality. Eventually, I think if there is clarity in terms of vision, mission, what we are trying to achieve other than money, because if it is a relationship which is purely based on money, then there might be conflict, and might be difficult to resolve the conflict. But if there's clarity in terms of vision, right? Okay, what do we want to do in terms of our bigger vision and bigger philosophy, then I think things get resolved very fast. I really believe that yes, all of us need money and all of us do business for money. But I think again, one thing is very important. If you do business for money, then and especially for part in a franchisee ecosystem also, and you keep money first, then sometimes there are problems in that. But if you think of long term, because when you think of money now, then it is most of the time is people think of short term also. People think that okay, I'm putting in, let's say, X money, and I am thinking of this return, and they start thinking of return from the first month or first year or so on, and then there is expectation mismatch, because you build this whole thing in, let's say, devoted 10 years to build brand at that level, uh, uh, and it's not just the money you have put in. You have put in a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of things have gone into it. And from our point of view, we always think of partner who are aligned with us on our vision, that okay, definitely if we have grown that to that this level, we have made money, right? We have created value, but we have never seen it from that perspective. We have always seen that yes, this is the bigger vision, and this is how we are adding value. This is how we are serving our customers, and we need to be aligned on that. So that becomes most important for franchisee. I will say, if you are thinking of any franchisee, don't think of any short-term returns. I think that's not going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a long franchising is a very, very long-term commitment, and it is. I think a relationship at work. It's a if you don't commit it to long-term relationship, it doesn't work.
Yeah, true, true. Well said. I think that's the key to keeping the relationship on a long-term basis. And Anil, I also, besides, business, I understand that you love playing video games. So what's on your hand nowadays?
I don't play video games much, but my son plays
Yeah.
a lot of video games. So he plays Minecraft. I think he's very fond of Minecraft, and many times he will be sitting beside me and showing me, see, I have done this, see, I did this. So I think that's fun, because otherwise it's very hectic for us, fast-paced organization, a lot of things. So that's bit brother for us when I sit with my son. And
So does he get a partner in you to play Minecraft?
uh, very rarely.
Yeah.
I I just come as a uh, cheerleader for him. I will just clap.
Oh.
Okay, you did good job. Well done. Nice. But yeah, sometimes I play.
Yeah, true. No, it's very refreshing, to do that. And I was talking to one of my friends, and he says that the only energy that he gets is from playing video games, with his son. So competing with him, he says, makes me feel that I'm competing in actually the corporate world. So he says it's that tough and it's that
Right.
compelling to play.
Right.
And
Yeah.
my 11-year-old actually beaten me in the chess, so that also starts happening. So it's a full circle, right? So
Right. Right.
Right, that's great. So, since we're nearing, the end of the session, and that was really enriching and understanding and appreciating your thoughts, that the way we get from the society, it's like equally we give back to the society. So, any final word, from your side in terms of best practices that keeps the relationship on with our partners in the business, and what could be the focal point or the goal for the organizations to run?
So two things. One, first of all, I want to say that in context of India, in context of today's times, and especially in context of education, opportunities are huge opportunities, because education is totally unserved as on date. It's largely run by government, and towns, villages, poorly served as on date. In terms of quality, there's a huge gap. So I think in terms of opportunity, education is really big in India, and so are many other sectors, but particularly I know education, huge gaps are there at every level, right? So if somebody is thinking of entering education and thinking of creating a future in education as an entrepreneur, I think this is the time. it's huge, right? Everybody, in every home, you will have 2, 3 childs, and not only childs, from 2 years, I think nowadays from 1 year, 2 year, we start putting our kids in play school or such places, and it goes till 30, 35 years. So that's the width of education in India. Second, when you are entering into any business, or let's say even in franchisee, so one has to be very clear in terms of his expectations from the business, very, very clear. And those expectations need to be discussed very clearly, because most of the time we assume a lot of things. We assume that, okay, we will do this and that will happen. This happened in a friend's case, then that is also going to happen in my case. One of my friend did this, that happened. So I think this is key, because if you are able to sit together with your partner, and you are able to clearly outline the expectations of the relationship, then I think life is going to be relatively easy. Because, and again, what I'm expecting is that there will be complete honesty on both the sides. There will be no hidden agenda on any of the sides. If that is the case, I think that works out very well. And third thing is that uh, so there is no guarantee in business, right? It's not that if you are starting any franchisee, starting any business, it's going to succeed for sure. There's no guarantee. Business is a risky thing. There is going to be risk, and accordingly, rewards are also going to be high. You have to accept that. That's a reality, right? So, not every business is successful. Not every franchise is successful. Not every human is successful. So, accept this fact. When you are going to start, you will put in your best efforts. You will be honest. Your partner is going to be honest. But sometimes things don't work. But again, that's an extreme case. But what I'm saying is that you start with a positive thought, and you should start with a positive thought. Uh, but see, why I'm saying this thought is that there will be a lot of ups and downs in the journey. If you really have intent to work long term and be long term in that situation or business, then there are going to be a lot of ups and downs. And in those situations, if you are aligned that there will be ups and downs, there will be situations where you might feel that it is not working out, but you still believe that it will work out. That is going to matter a lot, and your faith in that yes, we are in the right direction and it will eventually work out. Because you cannot take that assurance guarantee from each other. You cannot say, if I am giving you franchise, then you'll give me that much business. Or let's say if I am taking franchisee, this is the profit I'm going to happen. We can give broad outlines. We can give expectations. We can give possibilities. But probably it's very difficult to guarantee, because things change. And yeah, but you commit to each other. Yes, yeah, we are going to do this. These are things where things stand, and together we are going to make it big. Then I think it is going to work.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm completely with that.
True. That's an interdependent relationship that works with both of them, with transparency in setting the goals right. Great. So it was a great conversation, Anil. Thank you for your time, and it's great to know you in person, and it's great to know what good things are you doing. So all the best for the future. And I had a lovely time talking to you, and for our visitors, listeners, whatever the questions are, you can post it to us also, and follow us on the given links. And we should be able to answer your queries regarding franchising at any point in time. And thank you so much to both of you for giving your precious time to us.